Yeah, I can do that. We're live? Good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock and I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Attendance. We are all in attendance. We'll give Councillor Larry Pinch a minute to take her seat and so we're all here. We're good to go. Council, I'm going to look for approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions this evening? Seeing no lights, we'll approve the agenda as circulated. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing no lights, there are none. So we're going to move down to announcements. I have a couple announcements. You can't hear? Okay, I'll get closer to this and speak louder. Can you hear me now? No, I'm seeing no's. Can you hear me now? No? Do we have a volume adjuster? I can talk right into it. Are you better now? I'm getting a no. I've never had this problem. Usually everyone wants me to not talk. So exactly. Is that any better? I got an okay. So I'll try to speak louder. Good? Okay, we're good. I feel really loud now. Okay, we'll move right along. West Hants Regional Municipality is in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This land is governed by the treaties of peace and friendship signed in 1726. West Hants Regional Municipality recognizes we are all treaty people and have responsibilities to this land and each other. West Hants Regional Municipality also recognizes African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose history, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. And we do have a packed house tonight. There's lots of people here. So in case of an emergency, the exits are at the back. We go out and the muster station is out the door to the left. And I'm going to ask Councillor Paul Morton, since you're looking at me, to check the washrooms to make sure no one is left inside. We also have a couple presentations tonight, so I just want to remind that this council and committee and I as chair are committed to ensuring this meeting and its participants conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner as outlined in the municipality's municipal code of conduct. Meeting presenters, staff, and the public are expected to conduct themselves in an equally respectful manner at all times the meeting is being conducted. I'll thank everyone in advance for the commitment to these important meeting principles. And before I open it up to the floor for other announcement, councillors, we do have Mayor Zabian, who has a couple community recognitions that we're going to do at this time.
Oh, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just one this evening. Sorry, there's that little bit of a feedback there. Can we just bring it down maybe a little bit? I talk a little bit louder, folks, so. Just a bit. I don't think so. I think it's from the main one there. That just seems a little bit better. All right, let's try that. Everybody still good to hear me? All right, let's go here. Elijah, we're going to bring you up here to my right if you want to come on up. It's your turn, man. Don't be. Oh, he didn't know. Oh, well, your family's pretty good. I'm not sure why they brought you, but I know why, but you're going to find out why here in a bit. So everybody, this is Elijah Parker. And some people make a difference quietly, simply by stepping forward when their community needs them most. That perfectly describes Elijah here. When the Southwest Hands Fire Hall unexpectedly lost the dedicated volunteer who had organized its monthly jam sessions, Elijah answered the call to ensure the music didn't stop. Taking on the responsibility with maturity, dedication, and enthusiasm, he has devoted countless volunteer hours to organizing musicians, arranging the setup, and making sure each event runs smoothly. Because of his commitment, these jams remain a cherished gathering where friends, neighbors, and visitors come together to enjoy music, laughter, and friendship. His dedication extends well beyond the fire hall. He serves as secretary of the Avon 4-H Club, where he's involved in welding and woodworking projects, volunteers with the men's breakfast at Belmont Hall by helping with setup, and generously shares his musical talents with the congregation at Newport Baptist Church and at all jams throughout our municipality. Just on Saturday, he was at a birthday party playing some beautiful music. Music is a huge part of who he is. In addition to performing at the Fire Hall Jams, he is also a member of his school band and the lead guitarist for the No Name Hillbillies, also willing to share his talents with others. That's a pretty interesting name. Despite his many volunteer commitments, he continues to excel academically as an honors with distinction student entering grade 12 at Avonview High School. His willingness to serve, strong work ethic, and humble leadership are an inspiration to everybody around him. Elijah exemplifies what community is all about: seeing a need, answering the call, and making a lasting difference. We are incredibly fortunate to have young leaders like him helping to strengthen, enrich, and inspire West Hants. So tonight, Elijah, the community would like to recognize your inspiration to us all and award you the certificate of appreciation.
I didn't. I thought I was coming here for somebody else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There you go, sir.
Scooch over just a little bit. So I can, yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Congratulations. Keep it on there.
Yeah.
Good thing I didn't give it away, you guys, when I was talking to him earlier.
Well done. It's always nice when they're surprised and they don't know why they're here. So it's a good job. So I will open it up now to counselors if you have any announcements. Counselor Paul Wheaton.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and just want to congratulate Elijah. He's also a fixture at our Eller's House breakfast, so good work, Elijah. And with breakfast on the mind, folks, this Saturday at 8:30, it's at Ardois Hall, though, not Eller's House. Ardois this weekend. We have the Family Fun Day, and there's breakfast at 8:30, and then a car show, and then a barbecue for lunch. And then next weekend is the big hoorah, the Bluegrass Festival. That's at Beachbrook Campground in Ardois. So hope to see everybody in Ardois the next 2 weekends. It's going to be a hot time. Car show's great.
Yeah, and you're going to feed them breakfast and lunch, so we'll have to find somewhere to go for supper.
I won't be serving breakfast, but I'll probably be on the barbecue.
Okay, sounds good. Counselors, any other announcements? Seeing no lights, we're going to move right along to number 6. Approval of the previous meeting minutes, 2026-0609, Committee of the Whole minutes. They were circulated in our package. If there's no questions or errors, or we will pass them as circulated. Seeing no lights, that's great. So now we're going to move on to presentations. Our first one is Friends of the Hantsport Library, and I'm going to invite Lorraine McQueen up to the front, and you can turn your mic on. And you can sit on either side in one of those chairs and turn your light on the mic. Maybe Counselor Larry Pench can help you there if you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good evening, Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about my concern for rural libraries and the recent changes announced by the Annapolis Valley Regional Library, the AVRL. Last evening in Wolfville, the AVRL board agreed to pause the announced closures of 5 of its branches, including Hantsport, until September 30th to 2026. I'm relieved at this pause, which gives us time to consider the implications of the new model of library service planned for the Annapolis Valley. I live in Hantsport, but I am deeply concerned about all of our rural libraries. Hantsport is a thriving growth community, proud of its history and confident of its future. I'm told we now have 60 children under the age of 3 living in here, so we are indeed growing. However, the recent decision of AVL to close our public library has left me and my Hantsport neighbors confused, distressed, and angry. Hantsport residents want their library to remain open. Tonight, I want to give them a voice and reassure them that they have been heard. I also want to provide some information about the management of rural library services in Nova Scotia and to focus our attention on a path forward. I'm a retired professional librarian, and during my career, I've held management positions in the Nova Scotia Provincial Library, the National Library of Canada, the Canadian Centre for Management Development, Acadia University, and after retirement, as CEO of AVRL. I am respected by my professional colleagues and have been elected president of the Atlantic Provinces Library Association, the Canadian Library Association, and have served as a Canadian representative on the International Federation of Library Association Committee for libraries serving visually impaired persons. I know the value of libraries around the world, in Canada, and in Nova Scotia. Hantsport has had a public library since 1957. In 1961, it moved from HMCC to the Hantsport School. In 2015, the school was renovated and our library was asked to move. I was a founding member of the Friends of the Hantsport Public Library, the Hantsport Library Advisory Council, and with substantial help from the Jodrey family, Glooscap First Nation, countless citizens of Hantsport and area, and the municipality of West Hants, we established our first standalone library in Hantsport. Our little library thrived to become a community hub, an innovative, creative, and highly successful community asset. Hantsport was proud of its library and active in its support, raising money to provide expert children's programming, popular library programming and events, and essential services to our citizens. I know the value of this library to our community. Today, the Hantsport Library is managed by AVRL, and therefore it's critical to understand AVRL's mission. I quote, "The Annapolis Valley Regional Library builds strong communities through the sharing of places for collections and connections. This sharing of spaces is fundamentally important. Communities and their municipal councils share in the support of a place for the delivery of services. Rural communities feel a sense of public ownership and pride in the place that they have helped create and are fiercely protective of their continued existence. This place is also the face of our municipality. In many rural communities, the library is the only public place supported by municipal funds. It welcomes everyone, no matter their age, race, religion, their purchasing power, or their personal circumstances. AVRL operates under the Nova Scotia Libraries Act. This act, dating from the 1940s, creates a system of independent regional library boards, specifies funding formulas, and permits municipal units to contract for library services. Regional libraries use their provincial, municipal, and community funds to operate the branches. Some are big, some are small, but all are highly valued by their communities. So why are our branches now threatened with closure? It seems to be a matter of money. Okay. I understand the regional public library system has been underfunded for its entire existence. However, to the best of my knowledge, no branch library has been closed in the Annapolis Valley since AVRL was founded in 1949. Previous AVRL administrations have managed their limited funds and their policies to protect all their branches. And despite the deficiencies of the current provincial funding formula, it is my understanding that no other regional library board in Nova Scotia has closed any of its branches. And I know of one which has just announced a new branch. Why has everything changed at AVRL? Well, I think I understand that the policy changes began with the appointment of a new administration in January 2023. I was at first puzzled and then confounded and finally seriously alarmed at new policies and communications from this new administration. I couldn't understand why AVRL had adopted management policies that imposed rigid central control over 11 branches, caused the loss of valued staff, blocked all local programming, rejected all volunteer and community input, and initiated a threatening publicity campaign to demand more government funding. I was particularly disturbed by the effect these new policies had on AVRL staff. In my opinion, the restrictions on branch supervisors to engage with their communities has so changed their jobs as to amount to constructive dismissal. And the demand for all staff to follow scripted answers to community questions was, if not illegal, certainly deeply demoralizing. These policies and their visible outcomes, in my opinion, do not represent good regional library management. Could it be that the new management did not understand that AVRL provided library services to a cluster of highly unique and independent communities? We all know Berwick and Port Williams are not the same. And so I wondered, why didn't the board insist that the administration engage and consult rather than dictate and impose? In May 2025, I met with the CEO and the board chair. I asked them what the new policies were designed to accomplish. They said these new policies would create sustainable library services in the Annapolis Valley and that community involvement was a concern for them. I was very alarmed and spoke about my concerns to a board member. Soon after, the CEO's proposed 3-year sustainability plan was announced, complete with the closure of 5 community libraries, and all without municipal consultation or any community involvement. I feel this deeply unpopular plan is seriously flawed and highly discriminatory. It seems to be largely based on the belief that creating a standard library model for 6 communities with 39 open hours per week and 2 full-time and 1 part-time staff justifies denying 5 rural communities of any service at all. And that this sustainability plan will be supported by the public. The plan has been justified on the basis of a financial crisis. We have been repeatedly told that AVRL is facing serious financial difficulties, and I do not dispute this. What I find incomprehensible is that in time of financial crisis, the administration would not immediately impose a hiring freeze, revise budgets and cut costs, consult widely with partners and communities, and offer potential solutions which would protect library services for all our communities. Instead, there is only one solution offered, and even with the newly announced pause on closures, it is stated that on July 21st, the new model expanding hours and staff in 6 branches will apply. It is difficult to determine the actual financial impact of this new model and whether it can be sustained in the future, given the cost of the loss of goodwill and trust in the AVRL. Why has the AVR board seen fit to support these policy changes, financial decisions, and the proposed sustainability plan? Why expand services in a community with the smallest population, close a branch with the largest population, or retain one in a community which already has a large university library open to the public? Why were these choices made? It is difficult to know, as many board discussions around the closures and the sustainability plan have been held in camera. In camera. It means no one can watch, listen, or learn of the discussion that took place. And subsequently, no board member is free to discuss the rationale for the decisions that were made. I feel this situation is very damaging for all our branch libraries and is fueling loss of public trust and support for AVRL. Rumors of favoritism and hidden agendas are building now on social media. However, the first constructive step has been taken and a short pause on closures was successfully negotiated yesterday. Our community has noted and is grateful to Mayor Zabian for his work on this pause. What happens now? Well, as you know, most presentations have an ask, and this one is no different. I understand fully the pressures on municipal politicians to fix everything, and libraries must seem like a very small file when compared to the infrastructure projects and new housing developments. However, our public library places are very important to us and help us maintain a sense of connection with our municipality. And so I dare to ask, number one, please protect and preserve the public library space in Hansport after this short pause. If AVRL no longer delivers library services in Hansport, we want this space to continue to serve our community. Two, please host a community meeting in Hansport with representatives from your council. This unexpected and inexplicable closure of our Hansport Library has hit our community hard. When the time is right, please come and talk to us. Three, in the coming months, please work to restore confidence in our regional library system. I ask Council to insist on much better oversight and much more accountability for the management of AVRL. And finally, on behalf of all rural libraries in Nova Scotia, I ask Council to request the provincial government to amend the Libraries Act to prevent the closure of any rural library without appropriate consultation. No matter how long this change takes, this ask is important. And so, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about the importance and value of library services to rural communities and our confusion about the decisions of AVRL. I am very worried and feel strongly that AVRL has lost its direction. Working together, we may yet save it before it's too late. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorraine, for the presentation. I will ask if there's any questions from councillors to Lorraine at this time. Councillor Paul Morton.
Thank you for the presentation, Lorraine. Lots of information in there, and I will guarantee there'll be a meeting.
Thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no more lights, thank you very much again. And you're all welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting. And if not, we understand. So we're going to move on, and presentations B, capital project update presentation. Project engineer Boutier, the chair is yours.
Thank you, Chair and councillors. I thought everyone was here for this capital update presentation.
Sorry we disappointed you, but we are looking forward to it. You may not get a round of applause though afterwards, so don't set yourself up for disappointment.
That's okay. So I wanted to use the opportunity to provide an update for capital projects that were under construction last year. And it's not just for interest, but I think it's also important from an accountability perspective, just to bring these projects back to the table, talk about them, and show council what the contract prices were, what the contingencies were, and what the final cost was. So the projects that we'll talk about are some of the major projects that happened last year, and we'll go through each one. They're listed in order of their contract number. So jumping right in, the first one is the Windsor Water Storage Expansion Project, otherwise known as the Standpipe or the Water Tower off of Burgess Road. This water tower is 5,400 cubic meters. So that's about 1.2 million imperial gallons. The construction took place from August 2024 to January of this year. And the contract price was around 4.9 million. The approved contingency was almost 500,000, and the final cost came in actually just under the contract price. And the main reason for that was that there was a Nova Scotia Power allowance built into the contract that we didn't need to use. So yeah, not only did we not use contingency, but it came in under budget. A few pictures. Unlike most construction projects, this one we started with the roof and then built it up. So kind of backwards from normal. Let's see. So these pictures kind of show it as it was going up into the air, and each section was jacked up, and yeah, working from the bottom up. The total height of the building is 28.5 meters tall, so almost 94 feet. Next on the list is the Nesbitt Street renewal. This project took place from last June to September. The contract price for this one was around 2.2 million, and the approved contingency was $326,000 plus tax. The final cost came in just under that approved contingency, and the cost was impacted by unsuitable material. So there was 1,700 cubic meters of what we call marsh mud. So while they were excavating the trenches for the sewer and water lines, they encountered this very organic, unstable material that we couldn't build the road on top of. And that seems to be a theme for some of the areas around here. And it could even be a reason why some of the roads haven't lasted as long as you'd expect. So now when we rebuild streets, we put a layer of surge rock, geotextile material, and then the road gravels and the asphalt. So that unexpected unsuitable material resulted in 483,000 of an increase. This was partially offset by some savings by removing an air release chamber from the contract, and we didn't have to use the provisional item for trench excavation of rock. On top of this, we negotiated unit price and quantity reductions. So because there was so much more unsuitable volume than we anticipated, that enabled us to negotiate with the contractor to reduce the unit rates. So in total, those reductions were almost 90,000, and that allowed us to stay just within the contingency amount. So a couple pictures, one of them is looking towards Colonial Road and one is looking towards the cul-de-sac. And the total length of this project was 225 meters. Next project is the Avondale boat launch. So good to see a project in the rural area as well. The project took place from January to September. Some of that was prefabrication of concrete panels. The actual construction, I believe, started in April. So the contract price for that one was $385,000 with an approved contingency of $100,000, and the final cost was $432,000. The final cost included a few scope changes. One of them was that we extended the bottom of the boat launch by 10 meters. And that was also through a motion of council before my time, but that added a little bit of cost. And then we also supplied and placed 600 tons of armor stone to stabilize the bank and remediate erosion damage. And that was just on the other side of the boat launch. We'll see that in the pictures, and that added almost 38,000. So out of the final cost, 38,000 was for that additional kind of emergency work. So here's a couple pictures of the completed boat launch, which is a lot more, it's a lot more practical, and the people who use the boat launch, like they've said a lot of good comments about it. So the picture on the left shows how the rock was extended by 10 meters, and that just gives some of the users the ability to use the boat launch during lower tides. And then the erosion I was talking about on the other side is shown on the picture on the right. So the erosion had gotten to the point where it was starting to undermine the berm, and it was definitely the right time to protect that and build it back up. So here's a couple of pictures of them placing the armor stone to protect that area. And also a picture in the winter that showed that the stone did stay in place. And I recently took a visit back, and it's still in place. So that repair really held up. Next project is the Tregatha Creek Sanitary Pipe Crossing. So that project took place last August and September. A little bit of a smaller project, 212,000, with an approved contingency of 33,000, and the final cost was a little bit lower than the contract price. So this project involved the replacement of the existing suspended sanitary sewer crossing over Tregatha Creek. The existing structure and piping were at risk of failure. For example, the cast iron pipe had exposed joints that were showing signs of deterioration and deflection. And so you can see the old versus the new. Certainly a lot safer system now. And if there is flooding with debris or branches being washed down the stream, the crossing is not at risk of failure anymore. Riverview Road renewal is the next one on the list in Hansport, and that was a road renewal approximately 575 meters long. So the work, actually the dates are incorrect there. That should have said April to around November of last year. The contract price was 3.5 million with an approved contingency of 504,000. And the final cost was just under the contract price. Here's a picture of when they were placing the chamber, the pressure reducing chamber for the water system. And actually the picture on the right shows the inside of that arrangement. And the other picture shows a view looking down Riverview Road after completion. Main Street renewal, also in Hansport. This project took place from July to December last year. Contract price of 2.2 million and an approved contingency of 336,000. The final cost was 2.18 million. So again, an example of not using the contingency. An important note is that the final cost does not include 233,000 for the remediation of contaminated soils in the roadway, and that was fully reimbursed by Imperial Oil Limited. So the picture here shows towards the intersection of Tannery Road. As they were excavating for new pipe work, they encountered this contamination. It was quite obvious by the look and the smell of the material. And so, yeah, did I call it, was it Imperial Oil? Yeah. So they worked very closely with us. They included their own consultant. And we also included a consultant initially, Dillon Consulting. And all of our costs were reimbursed, as well as the main contractor's costs. And here's a couple of pictures of the street renewal project. So a very nice outcome. That actually concludes the presentation. And just important to highlight that the contingencies that are approved when we bring contract approvals to council, they really help the projects to get to completion without delays. And we will continue to work hard with the contractors to only use that contingency when it's necessary. And when it's there, it's very useful. Actually, the current King and Pezant Road project, we're also encountering a lot more unsuitable material on that project than we anticipated. And so it's another example of being able to continue the work without delays and delay costs and things like that. And I think it's good to maybe do presentations like this once or twice a year so that counselors can stay in the loop on what the costs were. Sometimes after contract approval, it kind of goes under the radar. So hopefully this presentation was helpful, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So I will open it up to Councillor Ivy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Tim, thanks for the presentation. I think if we look back, you may recall a couple of months ago, we were going through the capital budget review of items from previous years, and it was a very detailed, long spreadsheet that was provided by finance. And this actually gives us a very timely closeout on a lot of projects that were highly valued. In fact, in running your numbers there, it looks like based on the budgeted amount compared to the contract amount that we came in somewhere between 75, 80 and 90% below what was allocated, which I think is a really good thing. So I really appreciate getting to see that and broken out by those projects that we've just gone through in the last year. I know there's a large number in that list, and we're always curious. So thank you.
Any other questions? You're off the hook. You might have got an applause because you didn't use the contingency. I was trying to do the rough math. And it looks like it was a fair bit that we didn't use. So that's a good thing. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your night. Okay, we're going to move right along to unfinished business. So A is request for additional support regarding the plan review for WSP recommendation report, Director Poirier. Welcome back, Director Poirier. I think it's your first time.
Yes. So I won't read the report word for word, but just a couple highlights for council's consideration tonight. We're requesting an additional budget of $38,490 plus HST. Background on this file: on November 28th, 2023, council approved the award of the RFP to WSP Canada Inc. in the amount of $192,480 plus 10% contingency. This budget has been exhausted by WSP as they've completed the scope of their work in the original contract, excluding the final public hearing council second reading presentation. On June 23rd, so last council meeting, council made the motion to direct staff to provide additional information, identifying the changes proposed in the new regional planning documents and host subsequent workshops with the Planning Advisory Committee and council. So we did go back to WSP for a quote for the additional work, and that came in at the $38,490 plus HST. And speaking to the Director of Finance, that could be funded through the Housing Accelerator Fund. And just to highlight one more piece of information, WSP Canada Inc. has confirmed that if they continue to stay engaged in this project, they'll have a more robust summary document prepared this summer, and they'll be able to host workshops with Planning Advisory Committee and Council in September. So that'll be a great timeline just to keep with the existing members of the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee, because they're also up for renewal in October. So we don't know if membership will be changing at that time. And that's my report for council's consideration. If there are any questions.
Great. Thank you for that. Is there any questions for Director Poirier? Mayor Zabian?
Yeah, just one. So this additional budget request is as a result of that workshop that was requested.
Yes, and the summary documentation that council's requested.
That was requested.
Yep.
Any other questions? Councillor John Smith?
Thank you, Chair. So the meeting in September, will that be like a final wrap on this so that we can get approval, or will that just lead to, is that the first of many consultations?
In the quote from WSP, they've included a full workshop day with council and planning advisory committee, as well as an additional day if it's needed. So the plan right now is that we would go through the summary documentation and take any comments and questions from council as we go through the 3 documents that are created for the regional municipality. So anything that comes out of that may lead to future additional consultation, but we're hoping that it'll be discussions that we can have and kind of mitigate any future impacts and on this project so that we can get it approved hopefully by the end of this year and start using these new documents.
Great. Good. Thank you very much.
Seeing no more lights, I do have one. Oh, Councillor Yanish, you go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for Director Poirier is what happens if we decline to approve the additional budget and we had the discussions in-house with the planning department and the various committees and council?
That's a great question. So in the staff report, I speak to staff capacity. Currently, we don't have a manager of planning, and I don't have a second planner on my staff for a short term this summer. And the planner that is currently working with the municipality is working on the applications that are coming through the process and daily inquiries that come in. So that's their role right now. We're anticipating if we do it in-house, it will take an additional time. So we're assuming that we won't have a summary document ready until early next year, so that early 2027, and then a workshop that would happen following that.
Thank you.
Councillor Ivey.
Hey, thank you, Chair. It's not as much a question as it's a comment as it relates to finding ourselves and wanting to see the additional workshops and the discussion with staff on this. And I think, as I may have said previously, in looking at the amount of time it would take those that have worked on the documents to pull that together to be able to share with us, that tells me that it's substantive in what's taken place. And as part of what's noted in the report is that it's already crossed over 3 councils. If we look back to when it started in the 2016, 2018 timeframe, some of the workshops and some of the work that's taken place has crossed over multiple planning committees and council. And so there's a lot that's gone into doing this work, which everybody acknowledges and was acknowledged in the planning session. So it's not a criticism of the work that's been done, it's that people are, I think, are wanting to be sure what's contained within the content, that we're not missing anything. So these do have the lifespan that they talk about of being a 20-year period of time with those documents in place. So I think it's the right thing to do.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much for the presentation, and there is a recommendation there if someone wishes to make it. Councillor Ivy.
I'll make the recommendation. Council approves the additional budget of $38,490 plus HST for WSP Canada Inc. to complete the change in scope in relation to the request for proposals number WHRM PD 23-04 consultant services to complete municipal planning document review.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Paul Wheaton. We will put that to a vote. Or is there any questions, Mayor Zavian?
Yeah, just on no question, just a comment on the motion. I won't be supporting it. I believe our documents are ready. The amount spent to date on the plan review is quite large, $250,218 accounted for in this report, not taken into account money spent in previous years since 2017. I think we began this process. So to have it all brought back for another crack at it for an additional $40,000, maybe more, depending on one additional day and one workshop, and then maybe more, I can't support it.
Thank you. Any other questions before we ask Clerk Snare to put that up for a vote? Seeing none, Clerk Snare, can we put that up to a vote, please? Motion passed with 4, 5, 6, 7 yeas. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving along to unfinished business B, RCOFN-010.01 Reserve Policy Amendments, Director Rashawn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you and circulated within your package is the updated draft of the reserve policy based on the feedback received at the June council meeting. It has been circulated, so I won't go over it in detail, but I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. And there's a motion within the report.
Thank you very much. So the report was circulated. Are there any questions on the report for Director Rashawn? Councillor Ivy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've made a few notes here, so I just want to buy the time to scan them for anything that if I could, through you, Chair, to Director Rashawn. We talked there about the carryover reserve, Director Rashawn, and there's no limit on time there for the amount that funding could transfer in there. Is that appropriate? Like, do we ever have projects that span over multiple years that we should be revisiting, or do we just put the funds there and it's okay, it's acceptable to have them hold?
The best example would be our debt servicing. Sometimes those can go over more than just 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I also noted that most of the contributions that we're talking about here, I think it used to be that it was shall, which implied that council must make the contributions. I see the wording in here has changed to may.
Correct.
And I think the other comment that came with that when we were talking about this the last time is that while you can go through the audited statements to pick out allocations for whatever buildings are valued at, it's not necessarily clear. And I think the comments made that would be helpful, I think, for council to know what those numbers mean by way of example. So on the building reserve, I think, which has a 2% requirement for contribution, but without knowing the value of our buildings, that doesn't give us any context to what we're committing to in putting those in. And so while we're here at committee of the whole, this will end up coming back to council in 2 weeks' time for review and approval. I think it would be helpful to know what those amounts are. And I know they're changing and that moves along, but if at the end of 2020, the year we just finished, 2026 fiscal year, if we know what those numbers were like, it would give us a sense as to maybe whether we want to say shall or may. And only because over the years we've gotten where we're not looking at those on an annual basis. We don't go down through them and check, do we want to add more to the building reserve? They're just predetermined. And I think we'd be better served if we had a sense of that. They were able to do that for us in the next 2 weeks.
Yes, and through you, Madam Chair, we can definitely look at what that looks like. It wouldn't necessarily impact unless you want to actually bind council to make those contributions, which is why we changed the language to may, which gives council the flexibility, because in previous years it was shall, and that can have a significant impact on the tax rate. So it gives council a little bit more flexibility to kind of stay within a target or stay within, have a little bit of flexibility so it's not so black and white, because decisions have to be made each year, but the policy doesn't get updated as these decisions get made. Now, as part of our budget presentation, we do include not necessarily the value of the assets, but typically I do a calculation to see how under we were, and I believe we were 40 plus under our recommended contribution based on the policy in this past budget period. Yeah.
For the operating reserve or
no, for our building and capital.
for
Yeah.
building. Okay.
Yeah. So when I talk about the contributions to reserves within that piece, within the operating budget presentation, I usually reference how below we are and what the recommendation is. So this year, for example, we had 850 that was allocated within the operating budget. But I mentioned that we were 40 plus under what our recommended would be based on policy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It helps us to have it in context. And so I appreciate that. The other question, if I could, Madam Chair, through to the director. The other one that's in here is that sort of sticks out because we're similar with a may, and I appreciate your comment as well on may and shall. That as long as we're checking through them each year, then that's fine. But so going to may versus shall, I'm okay with that. But on sewer, we also have may, and we have no amount dedicated. And sewer is an area where we have substantial future forward expense coming at us because of our systems being older and so on. And I don't know what the value is on sewer that we have, but it might be helpful if we knew that as to whether we would allocate an amount or not. Here, it's sort of at our discretion.
So through you, Madam Chair, that's a great question. So there's actually two funding things I reference within the policy. So the reserve funding for the sewer operates similar to the utility. So we would then try and transfer whatever the amortization was over to the sewer reserve unless there's a deficit. And then there's also another stream that's in the second bullet or third bullet point under sewer that says the reserve may also receive annual contributions as determined by council during the budget process. So outside of the sewer rates and that budget, council can still decide to make more contribution to this. So this policy actually gives you two different funding sources: the automatic amortization kind of calculation that we do at year end, as long as there's no deficit, as well as council can determine to either increase or add to.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. And that was actually my other point. And I'll close out here, Madam Chair, through you to the director is that we know that presently the water and sewer have been leaning towards losses, which I'll maybe get closer to when we talk about your financial reports. But if we don't have the amortization being able to be carried over because we're running a loss, that's where the concern comes in with not having the funding to ensure that it has the long-term sustainability that we would want to see in that system. So I appreciate the mention of that, but amortization is good as long as we have it. As long as we're above the line, it's when we go below that we're not going to hit that target. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions, council? Seeing none, thank you for the presentation. And I will open up to council. There is a recommendation if anyone would like to make it. Counselor Ivy. Oh.
I think he was ahead of me.
Okay.
I think we tied,
Uh,
but I'd be happy to make a
Sure,
recommendation.
Counselor Ivy.
Committee of the whole recommends that council approves the updated reserve policy RCO FN-010.01 for the West Hants Regional Municipality.
Seconded by Counselor Ivy. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none. Clerk Snare, do you want to put that up for a vote? Motion passed. Thank you, everyone. Moving along to 8C, Annapolis Valley Regional Library, AVRL Update Information Report, Counselor Remy.
Thank you, Chair. Everything's in the report. I think there was an update because we did have the meeting last night, so I'm hoping everybody had the opportunity to read that. Yeah, I guess I'll just leave it. Everything's in the report, so I think if anybody has any questions, they can ask.
Perfect. Counselors, the report was there, so if there's any questions for Counselor Remy, now's the time. Counselor Ivy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's a comment, I guess, and a question that the report really helps, as did for those of us who were able to attend the session last week. But just in highlighting and identifying the issues and challenges that have existed within the library system for a long period of time. And I think it's unfortunate that that what we've seen take place with the proposed closure, I'll say proposed closure at the present time, of the libraries within the region is unfortunate in its timing, and it's unfortunate in the underfunding that's existed for a substantial period of time. Even though some funding was caught up in 2020 after 10 years with no increase. If you can imagine going 10 years without an increase, which you identify in your report, and then trying to catch up what you didn't get to do in the previous 10 years or to cover those costs that you carried in some fashion. And so I think it's really important that we understand the value that's placed on libraries within our region by everybody, including those who were tasked with that decision that was put forward within the community a couple of years ago. I don't know if I'm getting out of scope here, but
Yeah, I was just going to say if there was a question on the report or anything.
it's not a specific one, except for the fact that funding is clearly the key point, as was identified by Ms. McQueen in her conversation, that's really what drives this. And for those who were in positions of having to make that decision, there isn't anybody sitting on a library board anywhere that wants to close the library. I think that's a pretty broad general statement that I can make safely. That's not the goal of what was happening here, and I appreciate your summary on what was being done. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Counselor Larry Pinch.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, Counselor Remy. So I know they're going back out and asking the municipalities who had given additional funds or who had responded to the request for additional funds. And once they receive the responses from those councils, will you or the board update so that we would know whether, all municipalities have increased their funding or haven't, or any information regarding that?
Yeah, so the deadline on that motion, I believe, was, I want to say September 12th or something like that. Municipalities were to get back to us by, or back to the board by, and then we meet on the 17th to discuss all of those things. So, but yeah, as soon as we hear them.
Any other questions? Being none, thank you, Counselor Remy, for the report. So we will move on to D, Annapolis Valley Regional Library, AVRL Meeting and Council Direction, Mayor Zabian.
Yep, sticking to the theme of libraries tonight, and I think it's been summarized multiple times how important libraries are to everybody within each community within the AVRL's catchment area. This is pretty straightforward, concise council. Again, we don't know where the future of our libraries are. The decision from the board the other night to pause these closures to the end of September, I believe, using their reserve funds. That's a very temporary Band-Aid fix to buy more time for them to allow municipalities to come to the table. I'm proud of West Hants for coming to the table back in the spring for committing its funds, and I'll put a motion forward tonight to have council just recommit those funds as well. But for me and CAO to have the blessing of council to have those difficult decisions and report back to this group on what we're hearing and options, and whether it's strictly funding, whether I don't know. I don't think anybody knows at this point, but funding definitely seems to be the crux of the problem. And how do we get more funding, and where does it come from, and what does it look like? So I can't predict the future. If I did, I think we'd have a better world, but we don't. And so I'll put this recommendation forward that Council direct CAO and Mayor to explore options for the future of library services within the West Hants Regional Municipality with the province of Nova Scotia and Annapolis Valley Regional Library, and to report back to Council at the earliest convenience. More opportunity.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Paul Morton. Any questions on the motions? Councillor Ivy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I guess what I'd like, because it's not the one thing that's not clear on the report, is this to be separate and independent from what we currently have as representation on the board, or is this to have you and the CAO replace the position of the board? And because I think that's a different context than what we have in the report, and I think we should know about that when we're looking at it here. And I'll just add to it that I know that yourself and the CAO have already been involved in conversations with the board as they've worked through this process over the last year. And I just want to be clear what it is that we're voting on when we talk about having the two of you take this on.
Yeah, the board represents the municipality, or our member of council represents the municipality through the board's decisions on running the AVRL. This is not about running the AVRL. It's about ensuring things going forward as a community, and the province is reaching out to, I think, almost every municipal unit. They've sat down with the board multiple times. This group has to clearly state what its intentions are going forward, and I think we've all said it multiple times that we support our libraries. We want the continued operations of both of our libraries within. We're fortunate to have two within the West Hants Regional Municipality. My intention is to not replace our board member. I think she's represented the group very well on the AVRL, and I will give kudos. It's not an easy position to be in, and regardless of decision, it comes down to funding at the end of the day. But going forward, I would like to have the blessing of this group to be able to have those discussions as well as a more formal. My council is dedicated to ensuring that we do have two libraries going forward, and what does that look like? So that's the intent of this. The board will continue doing its job as they have, and I think I'd like to have the blessing of council to get involved in those discussions as well.
Thank you. And so based on the funding component of that would, am I correct to take it that would involve us advocating strongly with the provincial government for them to increase their funding towards this initiative? They represent the 70+% of total cost of what's going in to the libraries. And as such, we've nearly doubled our contribution, or increased our story by 50% with the addition of what we put in the last, or committed to in the last budget cycle. Would the provincial government be the primary target of that funding, I guess is what I'm looking to understand there.
That's, sorry if I may, Chair. And that's the conversations I want to get into. So if it's going to be a new funding formula, that will increase the contribution from this group as well, because if the province increases its portion, our portion will increase as well, based on the formula. Whether it's a new formula, we don't know. The past number of years, it was bridge funding that fell outside the scope, which worked for all of us. That's why we weren't tasked to give anything more. So I don't know what the right answer is at this point. I'd like to have those talks with the blessing of council over and above the board's work as well. So I just don't want to work behind the scenes with if I don't have the blessing of this group.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. And we all want the same thing here. I think that's pretty clear from the motion that you had brought forward previously on this. And so I just want to be clear on that. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Larry Pinch.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Mayor Zabian. Would this potentially also include like other options should we be in a situation where the potential closure kind of comes back up again? So other opportunities or other things that we could do to help keep our libraries open, or is it specifically related to like financial implications and funding?
Again, I'll give my opinion, Chair, to my colleague. I have no intention of taking a library on as a municipality. I think the AVRL are the experts. I think the history, as per Lorraine and everything it's done, is the best way forward. Are there tweaks? Maybe. I'm not a library expert by any means. I have spoken to multiple people involved in that organization, past and present. I don't know what the best solution is. I would like the blessing of this group though to explore that and what that may look like. I know the board is tasked with operating and doing this stuff, but the province moves at different paces sometimes, and getting a board for every discussion, every decision, every sit down, it's probably going to be almost an impossibility. So as a representative of West Hants, if I have the blessing of this group, I can have those on a spur of a phone call and make sure our position is always articulated when it needs to be. So
Thank you.
Any other questions? So we have a motion, we have a seconder. Seeing no questions, it's gone, so I won't read it. So we'll put that to a vote. Clerk Snare. Motion passed. Thank you, everybody.
if I could just make one follow-up motion based on an email that council received last night from CEO Julia there. And council, it's just recommitting the additional funding that we did. I'm going to tweak the motion a little bit because I think there's some misunderstanding on service changes. And I think that may be a little bit misunderstood based on the reporting that's coming out, et cetera. So council reconfirm an additional $67,200 for the continued operation of both the Windsor and Hansport libraries up to March 31st, 2027, as per the AVRL funding request.
Motion made by Mayor Zabian. Is there a
Second.
seconder? Seconded by Councillor Paul Morton. Is there any questions? Councillor Remy.
Sorry, this is more of a comment. I think you just said till March. You gave the date there. This confirmed funding actually still leaves the board short. I think it's $217,000. So it's not going to actually take, even if all municipalities contribute that amount, it will probably end up being the end of February, not the end of the fiscal year. So the additional contribution isn't going to take us to the end of March 31st, like the end of the fiscal year. It's actually the end of November. It's like approximately $45,000 per month for each of the branches. And the way that works out, it still leaves a shortfall.
Was that new information? I'm just going by what was stated at our meeting on that Monday that we had.
Yeah. So it was based on when Julia was, I apologize, through you, Chair.
No problem.
And I'm sorry, I thought I included this in my information, but I think it was through an email from somebody. When we had to go down through and figure everything out, because when we closed the branches, there were cost implications to letting people go, such as severance and all of those types of things. So there was incurred costs there that wouldn't have been in the budget at the time of that request back in January. So now there is some changes to that. So it actually, I'm taking it off the top of my head, but it's right around $200,000 that it's still short to take us to the end of the fiscal year. So this additional funding, if all municipal units do it, it's sometime in February. And I apologize, I don't have that right in front of me right now, but it's not going to be to the end of March.
It's just a simple amendment then, Chair, end of February 2027, February 28, 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027. 2027.
I would just not include the date. I think if you just contribute that amount and then I would just not include a date. And then that way, because I'm not 100% sure on what the date was and factors can change between now and then. So I think they're just looking for the recommitment of the funds at this point in time from all of the municipalities, if that makes any sense, what I'm saying.
I would be hesitant because if I committed the funds, then potentially by end of September, we could lose that library and our funds are committed still, eh? That would be my hesitation. I don't believe we should be recommitting any funds, council, if it's not going to save our additional branch and not allow us proper time to find that solution. That's what I'm trying to get at. Not that I don't trust anybody, but again, even the information tonight has changed a little bit, and it just leaves me very hesitant. I would leave the date in there, council, of February 28th, and we're with the intent that we're always willing to work, but the intent is to allow us proper time to find a solution, which still doesn't give us much time to February, but it's more time than September would buy us. But
Okay, so is everyone clear on the motion now that it is going to be February 28th? Would you like to hear it read before we go any further?
No, another question on the motion.
Okay.
So I appreciate the date matter. Again, we're at committee of the whole. So if something's incorrect here, it can still be adjusted in 2 weeks' time. And so the other question is that this motion is recommitting, but there's no reference now to the condition that we had attached previously. Are we intending and pulling that condition, or is it? Can I ask for clarity on that, please?
yeah, and that's the reason for bringing this back, council. Sorry, I believe them. And again, when it's not prepared and it's not in a report, I do apologize. But it came in last night and I didn't have time to add it. But it states to reconfirm the additional 67,200 for the continued operation of both the Windsor and Hansport libraries up to the February 28th, 2027. So again, that's the gray area of service reductions, because I believe service levels were changed a little bit, and that I think that's what prevented the AVRL from accepting it the first time. It's that ambiguity of service changes that can mean many things. I don't want to tie their hands. I want this library to remain open. I think everybody wants that, and I think this allows us to get there, or West Hance's responsibility to help us try to get there.
Thanks very much. That's the clarity that I wanted to. Thank you.
Any other questions on the motion? Seeing none, Clerk Snare, can we put that up for a vote, please? Motion passed. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, we're going to move right along into 9 reports, and we're going to start with a CAO activity update information report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Clerk Snare will add the report to your package. I'll hit some highlights. Again, a series of library meetings, of which most of you are aware. Operationally, we've had a QP labor management meeting today. We have quarterly meetings with the union and its representatives, just to kind of go with outstanding items and to revisit the operations. The Avenue View High School graduation ceremony was successfully held at the sports complex on June 29th, and 231 graduates, maybe. So anyway, by all accounts, everyone was pleased, and it's something that we look to continue each year moving forward. Sorry, folks in the back, I'll lean into my mic. Bill, I know you're listening. The Association of Municipal Administrators, we had a conference in the fall, earlier in late spring, summer. And we continue to share our stories around droughts and how each municipality responded. I think, as we've reported before, under the NSFM umbrella, is that municipalities have varied range of experiences. Those on the South Shore have probably up to a decade of experience with droughts, and some of us less. A reminder, though, that all things being the same, the bottled water program is not being delivered again this year. So, all other things, I think we've learned a great bit of experience and knowledge from the past. I will speak to the Make It Rain project here in a moment. Nova Scotia Subsurface Energy Research Development Meeting coordinated by NSFM. Again, it was a virtual environment where we were receiving updates from the province and Dalhousie University on that program and the potential of onshore resources. So it does seem like there's a slow uptake on applicants through the Dalhousie program for exploration. So we can kind of continue to ask the same questions around transparency around applications, when they come in and if they're awarded, and then where the sites would be if that exploration does occur. And we continue to receive a level of assurance that that transparency will be there. Why it hasn't progressed and what level of resource is there, I mean, those are all questions yet to be answered as this program stays out there for industry to explore. And we continue to ask the questions about how municipalities would benefit if such a thing did exist in their community and this thing did materialize, we'll say. Deanna, or Clerk Snare, and I facilitated an unhoused community meeting on June 25th. We will and have been putting our notes together from that meeting. We had, for the most part, all representatives within West Hants and beyond attend the meeting. I thought it was very productive and a good sharing exercise to see what resources are out there. Some themes did emerge from that. And again, we'll share that with you in our notes and come back to council with direction. It is part of our strategic plan for the Diversity and Equity Committee. So we do have some reporting back to council to happen. 100 King Street, we continue to move through the process of with Hatch Engineering to revisit the occupation of 100 King Street. All pre-existing reports are being assessed and considered, and some Class D estimates are being put together now around the habitability of the space from a minimum to kind of a full retrofit. So minimum habitability through to a more thorough retrofit, similar to what some members of council would have seen in 2020 with a bit more detail. So a range. Audit committee met on June 17th. Lots happening at the library. Water supply. I could have probably written a page on this one. There's several initiatives led by the Public Works Department around evaluating our water supply, resources, distribution, and the application for increased water withdrawal for the hand sports system. So lots of work happening in that area. Specifically with respect to Make It Rain, Director Richard gave me an update today that they do hope to test the infrastructure that was installed last year in advance, hopefully. Again, hopefully it's not needed, but well in advance. Very soon we have approval from the Department of Fisheries, and we're just finalizing some of the confirmation of logistics with the Martok system and the connection to that system and their infrastructure. So, but we're confident, but the theory will be tested here very soon, hopefully in advance of it being needed, if it's needed. And then also just respect to water levels, I think we're reporting that all water supplies in all three systems are at high levels as we approach the summer. So for the most part, we're in a good position with respect to its current reserves, of course, pending weather. Final operational report update is Fire Services Director. Manager Rose and I and KBRS Consulting have finalized our selection process, and through KBRS we are negotiating with a successful candidate. So we do hope to have something to report to council perhaps by the end of the month. If not, if we're not meeting in August, hopefully September we'll have a person here or in place, but we are moving along and optimistic. That's my report.
Perfect. Happy to hear that. So if there are any questions, I'll just add to I presented the Jeannie Bork at the Hansport or at the Horton High graduate. There's over 250 graduates there. It was pretty impressive. So yeah. Any questions for our CAO on his report? Councillor Larry Pinch.
Thank you, through your chair to CAO. Just on the Make It Rain project, the test that we're talking about, So we don't know if it actually functions at this point, or this is a test that needs to be done this year because it hasn't been used since it was installed last year.
I think we've got the expert in the room. Maybe I'll ask him to
We'll
step
bring
forward.
Director Richard. You can make it rain for us.
Sure. So provide a bit of detail. So the pipeline was all constructed last year. We didn't do the physical connection to Markdock system, just given we were in good shape at that time. We received quite a bit of rain. So instead of disturbing Markdock system and as we were approaching snowmaking system, we decided, next year we'll commission the system and do some flow tests. So everything has been, tested as far as commissioning the pipe. It's just we haven't flowed physical water through that pipe. So we reapplied for authorization through Department of Environment and DFO. We've given them notice that in the next couple of weeks, we want to, flow water through that system. So we have all the approvals in place, and Martok system is ready to go. They're short staffed, so we're going to work with them and test the system. And for 4 to 6 hours is our window that we can do that through authorization because we're not in an emergency situation. Hopefully, we don't need to initiate the contingency plan, but we certainly want to make sure it's ready to go if needed.
May I ask one follow-up? Thank you. Do those approvals include that if we end up in a state of emergency that we can just use the system, or that we have to then reapply to use the system?
So we filed quite a bit of documentation, all our contingency plans. They asked for other options that we looked at, so they have that. So again, with any approvals, if we are in an emergency situation, I think it will escalate. But they've been reluctant to give us a broad approval to use it whenever we want. It's going to be an emergency situation. But we are, with my correspondence, we would like to have an approved contingency plan approved by them to use at any time in the future. But we're still working towards that approval for a broad contingency plan because of many factors, including the construction of a new habitat.
Any other questions for CAO? Seeing none, we're going to move right along to water consumption report 2025-2026. Director Rashawn, and then you're going to be doing the water financial update, March 31st, 2026, and general operation financial update, March 31st, 2026.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the reports have been forwarded in your package, and this will be the last water consumption report that takes this format. So it will transition over to Public Works reporting. So I do have a couple comments here as we finish out this year. So this is our 25-26 consumption report. So this reflects our whole year's worth of consumption. And as we look at our total percentages, we had a lot of movement this year with our closed accounts, which of course then get reopened. So we had 6.5 closed accounts throughout the year, which again creates also new accounts as well being generated. And we had 0.6 in adjustments this year. So that's really good in our percentages. Within the average, and when we compare to March 31st of last year on our variance from bulk water consumption, we were able to reduce from last year's March by 1.48%. And as I noted here, and we talked about within this report, there is some variance within the bulk master meters because of the impacts of our open distribution system. And I believe our Director of Public Works discussed this at our last presentation of the water consumption report. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Director Rashawn? Councillor Ivey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple, and it sort of goes back to the previous meeting when you were talking about the changes with the bulk meters and timing. And so did the reading of the bulk meters pretty much coincide with the timing of the billing that we were doing on the consumption at the taps? So the bottom chart last quarter, did that generally line up with what we saw as water coming out of the taps in the in the 3 Mile Plains, Hansport, Falmouth area?
There would be some variance.
There would be some, but
Yeah,
not
between
big
when the
enough this year.
residential meters are read.
Right, it's
and-
people on the street going around, I understand. So, but we're generally in the ballpark, a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so each quarter we have a planning meeting with both of our teams, and we discuss the schedule and all the reads that need to take place.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question that I have on this, the 3 Mile Plains is about a 15% increase over what it normally was running. 3 Mile Plains water at the tap is normally running in the 30, 32, 35, and this year you're showing 38 million gallons. That's a substantial uptick over the last year. Any sense of that? Is that all the?
Yeah, again, it's we're taking these bulk water meters that we really don't know where the water is flowing because we are operating the distribution system as one, along with several capital projects where we have valves closed that aren't normally closed. We have the new water tank online, so it has changed the hydraulics in the system. So again, relying on those numbers for the bulk water meters, we want to take those out of the equation. With the new reports, it'll be a more holistic report of showing the entire distribution system related to the plant output versus taking the bulk water meters that are midstreams and water could be flowing through them twice. As our director of finance and us had some conversations, there's potential that we could be double billing through that bulk water meter just based on valve operations. So.
Right. So, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the rescope or the reminder on that. But the question is about the water coming through the taps in the top part of the chart. 3 Mile Plains typically is running 30 to 32 to 33 million gallons per year. This year we're coming out at 38, which is the 15% that I'm referencing. Is that due to growth in the area?
Yes.
Is that, can you?
Yes.
Sorry,
I
give you the
misunderstood
answer,
your
but
question. Yes, most of the growth in our Windsor system is on that 3 Mile Plains side. So certainly the crossing, and we've seen some large developments. So absolutely, along with more accurate meters, more meters being installed, and just capturing that non-revenue water that we're trying to capture. So I think a combination of those things is showing that increased revenue and consumption that we're quantifying there.
Okay, so thank you for that. One follow-up more, if I could, Madam Chair. So the only other question is, we've approved a couple of items in the last 3 months here. One is an individual, and two is the audio-based meters. Have we progressed on that, or can you give us an update on that since we're talking about water here?
Yeah, so great. So the update on the new Canstrom meters is we're using up our current stock. And we don't want to start the pilot program so the pilot program actually hasn't started because we're using up that stock on old meters. Still a good meter, but we've bought and paid for those meters, so we want to use those. So we actually physically haven't installed too many of the new Canstrom meters yet. So that's work in progress.
So there was a restriction on the timing on that. Sorry, Madam Chair, through you follow up. There was a restriction on the timing of that from the time the order was placed or it arrived. I can't remember the number of days for us to get those in place, but have we ordered those or we have not?
So we've confirmed with the supplier that pilot program won't start until the software is up and running. So yeah, he's been working really well with us. So we haven't bought into that 6-month pilot program yet. So
okay,
haven't started.
And the individuals on the ground, though, the other piece was that we've hired an individual who's on the ground working.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, we have. And he's full-time water meter technician and doing great work in the field.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on the water consumption report? Being none, we can go to the financial update. Water.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So as stated before, this was circulated within your report. There hasn't been too much change within this from the previous predictions. However, there has been an update to the deficit and a reduction. So we were able to reduce the deficit by 24,233. There is still a few outstanding entries to be done. Of course, one is depreciation. So I made a note here at the bottom that this may change, of course, as we finalize our 25-26 year, but Within that, we are projecting a deficit of 18,903. And again, we also did very well on our revenues in comparison to where we were previously. So if we look at last year's in March 31st, 2025, our revenues we were projecting at about 5.8%. And we were projecting our revenues as of last February's report at 5.6, and we're still looking at 5.6. Same within our revenues. Our revenues were, or our expenses, sorry, are still within the 5.1 million versus the 5.2 million that was presented in February. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Rashad. Is there any questions on the water financial update? Councillor Ivey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'll identify two areas at once, and then I'll let the director. One is transmission and distribution, currently with an actual 1.6 and expecting about 400,000 more coming in on your forecast, if I can have you talk to that. And then the line below in admin in general, 835, and then coming to 1.9, and I'm assuming that that's depreciation, but can you just tell us, those are both significant swings between 500 to million plus. Can you talk about those? Then I've got one follow-up, I think.
Yep. So the administration is projecting higher just due to, again, the projected depreciation cost being higher. So we had within the 25-26 budget, 697. We're estimating around 1.0 million in our depreciation. Same with our administration fees. So those are over by about 60,000, as well as a few other of our categories under administration. The other piece that is coming in a little over is our non-operating expenses on that side, and that's just due to some of the meters, needing more meters, which impact the rates because those are paid through the user rates. So those are kind of the big things. Under transmission and distribution, that has been reported in the last previous couple presentations. We have a budget of 220, and we are over that significantly. And that is, again, due to water main breaks, and we need flagging, paving, and there's a lot of costs that go into that. We did do a review of that account. We were able to capitalize some, but not as much as originally anticipated.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think the final question that I have, and I appreciate you have answered those previously, but since we're at the year end, I thought it's worth just tying that down. The last question, I think it has to do with, again, I touched on it when we were talking earlier about sewer, and I'll bring it, I guess, when we get into the financials, is that we're just barely breaking even or showing losses that we've shown in each of those utilities. And because of that, they end up going into the general fund. So there's a broader impact. We talked previously about looking at a new rate study. Have we done anything? Is there anything in the works for a new rate study on water? And if you want it, and if, because sewer normally goes with it. So I'm assuming it's the one question. You can cover the two if you can.
Yeah, definitely. And I will speak to sewer when we get to the financial report.
Thanks.
I will clarify, though, just for understanding, of course, for the public as well, that the deficits that incur in the water utility do not impact the general operating. It's completely separate. Okay. However, we are also required to move our depreciation fund over to the fund. So it's not like if it occurs a deficit, that doesn't happen. We are required to move whatever depreciation is over to the depreciation fund based on the rules and regulations of the utility. So just that's the clarity there. And we have had previous deficits. We've had previous increases. So this will be the year that we would look at that. But we also have our financial system implementation that we've been kind of presenting to audit committee and talking at audit committee, as well as during budget time when we presented the capital project. So there will be some timing that we'll have to kind of look at when it comes to that financial system and when we actually start implementing new rates.
Got it. So do we have plans for a rate study in the next 9 months? Do I understand that, or I don't?
Probably not on the water side. If you'll recall back in budget time, we talked about whether council could make recommendations to increase the sewer rates outside of a rate study. And so that was a consideration that council was considering at budget time. They did, of course, wasn't a motion. However, it might be a recommendation going into the new year that we increase those rates and then perform a rate study.
Still just talking about water rates.
Sewer rates, actually.
Okay.
Because outside of because we'd actually have to do a study to approve water rate changes. But the sewer was specifically the focus because of the large deficit it's been incurring.
Yes, it was. And so perhaps when you get to sewer, we'll just nail it down. Thank you.
Councillor Larry Pinch.
Thank you, through your chair. I think Councillor already kind of asked my question about what the plans were to cover deficits in the future if we were going to continue. So I guess that's the plans.
Yeah, so the utility has a surplus deficit account, which acts not necessarily like a reserve, but all the funds have to stay in it. So as you incur surpluses, stays there, and as you incur deficits, it stays there. And the board actually will approve through rate studies the utilization of any balances in there to help mitigate rate changes. So we have balances within that it'll close too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more lights, we'll move on to D, General Operation Financial Update, March 31st, 2026.
Turn my mic off, sorry. So again, this has been circulated within your package. Not a huge amount of change from the descriptions of what the variances are. However, a lot of the year-end items have been taken care of. Again, we're still working on a few last-minute items. If we look in comparison to where we were reporting our February report versus our March report, we have a surplus of 398,281. That is slightly less than what we were anticipating. The biggest change you'll see from February's report to March's report is around transportation. One of the things I'll mention within transportation is J-class roads. So we had received our J-class roads invoice. J-class roads are not our assets, so we can't actually carry them on our capital books. So they actually filter through our operating fund. And so there's also a corresponding transfer from the consolidation reserve to fund that. So you will see that there's a big jump in transportation, and that's what that's associated to. So overall, from the March 31st, 2025 report, our expenses are about 3.5% higher. And that, again, significantly impacted by that 400,000 from J-class roads. And then our revenues are actually only 0.3% lower than what we had in March 31st of 2025. So overall, looking pretty good there. Our overall variance, when we look at our surplus, is 1.1% of our total budget. So that is a pretty good variance when we look at it overall. Happy to answer any other questions. And I apologize, I did say I would mention sewer, so let me just do that before we do anything else. So if we look at sewer, our sewer revenue is about 2.9. Our expenses currently are at about 2.5 before any depreciation. So we do have a little capacity or surplus this year that we're hopefully going to be able to transfer to our surplus reserve or our sewer reserve. So again, we're just kind of waiting for that final calculation on amortization.
All good. Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Chair. Just if I could and I appreciate you adding in the sewer piece there, Director Rochon. So to the previous question on possible study, is that in our future, or did I mix it up with water? And just to get it clear here.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely something on the horizon, but it probably won't be this fiscal year. However, due to the ongoing deficits that we've seen, even with this year, even though there is a little bit of a surplus, I think it would be at least my recommendation to council during budget time to maybe do a small increase, like 2.5% to the rates. And that way we can go through the rate study and then have a presentation to council.
Okay, thank you. Just because a couple of years there, we've had substantially about $500,000 on average, and so it'd be good to get that tidied up. The other thing I guess I'll say on sewer, and it's sort of like comparable with water, is that to get a breakout or a state, because sewer is almost, it's not a utility, but we always refer to it as, but almost a statement in line like we see with the water utility that might give us base rates of consumption. To know where that's looking would be very helpful throughout the year. So it's, when we only look at it once a year on budget, it's hard to get the full grasp of everything that's taking place there. But thank you for the information on that. It's appreciated.
Councillor John Smith.
No, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So question for Director Rashawn. As far as my memory goes, the cost for J-class roads was a fixed cost. I thought we had allocated like 250,000 a year or 500,000 a year.
Yeah, so this is there, it is delayed in being billed to us. So this is a previous year that we're getting this year. Funding is still in the consolidation reserve. But it still depends on what roads they do and their actual tendering cost and all of that. So technically our budget is fixed. This is what we have to work within. But if, let's say their tender comes in 20% lower, well, we're not going to give them our fixed cost. They're going to give us the benefit that their tender came in 20% lower as well. It's a 50-50 cost share based on the total cost, not necessarily what's budgeted.
So we could pay more than the 250 that we budgeted?
No, because when we send the J-class road, or when they send the J-class road letter, there's selection of roads that would happen during that process, or they would let us know what roads are being happened, and we would have to work within our budget that's approved.
Okay.
Yeah, because we report to them basically what our budget is.
Okay. Can I have a follow-up question around which roads were chosen this year? It might be for Director Richard. Yeah, so I'm just curious if the province has agreed to pave any J-class roads in West Hants this year, and if so, which roads they were?
Sure. So we submitted our list again. So we submit our list, and then the province comes back and says what roads would be applicable. This year, one road come back is Maple Lane, I think in Ellershouse, is being resurfaced. That's the one up by the Ellershouse Hall. So a short section. So that is, I think it's been signed off, and that should be completed here sometime before the fall. So we submitted I think 3, but just based on budget allocations, they only had so much J-class road funding, so it came back Maple Lane. So that will be done this year.
So what was the total amount of funding that was put towards that road? Was it the 250 or was it less?
Yeah, it was. It's less for that section of Maple Lane. Mark, do you have that amount that was like you just signed off on it?
Yeah, exact amount doesn't matter, but I was just wondering if we used the
It
whole
was less than
250.
the 250. Yeah, much less because there's only a short section of Maple Lane there. So yeah.
Okay. Very good. That's everything. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Project cost is 125. The municipal share is 62.5.
Yeah, it's not a lot. It's not a long lane.
7 kilometers.
Yes, I was going to say not 250 worth. Councillor Paul Wheaton.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And sorry, my question was for Director Richard, but he's getting his steps in tonight. So thank you, Director Richard. So Maple Lane is the only J-class road that's going to be done in West Hants this year.
This fiscal year, correct?
None of the other roads that we've talked about are going to get any resurfacing.
No, we applied for Beach Brook, was our priority, but just given the length and the budget, they came back, said Maple Lane was applicable. So.
And they're the people that make that decision. That does it. Public Works does
province's roads. Yeah, they have the ultimate decision. I think they compile all the municipalities of what they have, and then they prioritize based on budget, and they give us what will be done based on their analysis. So.
Okay, thank you for that. The residents on Maple Lane will be very happy about this. Can't say the other residents on other roads will, but we're getting a start. So thank you.
And just so that we're not confused, what we're talking about is actually applicable to the 26-27 budget, not this financial report that we're looking at right now. So what's included within this bill is Eder Road Extension, and Church Hill Drive. That was approved as part of the 24-25 J-class roads, and we received the bill in 25-26.
Yeah, I was going to say that was last year. Yeah.
Mhm.
They're a little behind, but it's getting done. We're getting it paid. That's all that matters.
Well, they have to reconcile their book
100%.
too.
Okay, seeing no other lights, thank you very much for those updates on those three reports. We'll move right along to correspondence. So we're at A, 2024-2028 council term general correspondence received as of July 10th, 2026. Library closure concerns, waste collection concerns, East Hants notification of official community plan, and Rick Smith regarding West Hants Regional Municipality procurement practices audit services. So those were all emailed to us. Councillor Wheaton, you had your lights on?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just wanted to speak quickly on the waste collection concerns. I believe all the letters that we've received are from my district, from the Forest Lakes Development in Ardois. And just wanted to let council know that I will be putting together a report for our next meeting on the 24th to see if we can help these people out. Things are getting pretty bad up there. They've got troubles with bears, raccoons, coyotes. They're doing the best they can. They've got the composters that they have built on their own. They have built a corral, for lack of a better word, around it to keep it together. And unfortunately, it's become more of a bear buffet. The residents up there are cleaning this all up themselves, and it's just something that we've talked about here many times. And I know that in Councillor Larry Pinch's district, they're beginning the pilot program. And as I say, I'll be putting together a report for council in 2 weeks.
Okay, sounds good. Seeing no more lights, I'll move on to B, 2024-2028 council term correspondence sent as of July 10th, 2026, and there was none. So we're going to move on to 11 and new business. And I have the first one. So Mayor Zabian, do you want to take the chair, please?
Absolutely. Blue Route sweeping request for consideration.
Thank you.
Back to you.
So the report was in, I'm not going to go through it. I do just want to give a little update. As you know, I gave options in there. I did speak to our MLA on this. She was out of the province. She's in the room tonight. Thank you very much. See you there. So I just was thinking, I had a resident call me, email, then I spoke to our manager of recreation and community engagement. They had already had a couple concerns in. I believe we have offered to rent out our sweeper, vacuum truck, an operator, and a pickup truck to warn approaching traffic. And the cost for us to rent it out to them from Falmouth to Hantsport, both sides would be $22.50 per sweep, and the same cost from Windsor to St. Croix. So we're looking at $4,500. Manager of Recreation and Community said it was not on the provincial radar to do it, but if we wanted to proceed with arranging that at our own cost, we could, which it's not our road. We should not do that. It's their responsibility. So I put the request in to write the letter. I just know that I did speak to our MLA and hoping we can get something done. I know they've purchased equipment to do this, but if I didn't put it on and we don't meet in August, it's going to get forgotten and summer's going to be over. So this is why it's here. So I will read the recommendation, but I will take any questions before I do so.
Questions, council, to Deputy Mayor.
I was going to say
Councilor Ivey,
but I'll let him do it.
Just generally, because I tend to believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong in this, but the gravel they're talking about is the random bits of gravel that rolls up on the edge of the road. And I'll put this in the frame of what I noted on Route 14, Chester Road, this week, and driving through there, that it appears they've gone through and they've upgraded the edge of the road with probably 2 or 3 inches of gravel, kind of bringing the edge of the road up level with the highway itself. And my question is if that's about to become the normal practice for what we're doing on, I refer to them as the secondary highways or roads that we have throughout the region, which would create for a lot more sweeping than what we may be talking about with the bit that's appearing there now. Do we know?
I can't answer that question. I don't know that, but I do know from the St. Croix to Windsor, there is also a lot, they have brought it up. And there is a lot of truck traffic moving it. It's bad. Yeah. And it is dangerous for our cyclists, but everyone's using it. You see a lot of people walking that are very happy with it. And I think for the sake of 4,500 that the province might be able to find some time to have it done. So, and it's also the Falmouth to Hantsport. Now I haven't traveled that as much. I don't know if someone else has, but
So it's this added gravel issue that's what's
Yes.
triggering this request. Is that correct?
yeah, it's dangerous.
It's-
Yeah.
They're not using it.
It's been an issue since those shoulders were paved and it was designated a blue route. So cyclists are using the blue route and they're noticing that it's not the best to use. So it's a shame, really. But Councillor Smith, John.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment. I use the blue route when I bike, and I find it's the gravel driveways where the gravel gets spread out across the lane, and so I think it happens fairly often. An example is the boat launch in Falmouth, where that driveway intersects the road. There's a lot of gravel there, and it's always there. Like every time cars come out, they drag the gravel with it.
Good observation. Any other questions to Deputy Mayor before she puts a recommendation on? All right, back to you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, council directs staff to write a letter to advocate to have the Blue Route bicycle lane on Highway 1 from Windsor to St. Croix and from Falmouth to Hantsport cleaned of the gravel that has been accumulating.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Francis.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Leary Pinch. Discussion on the motion. No questions. All right, we'll put that vote up on the screen. Clerk Snare. Motion is passed. Thank you very much, everybody. Back to you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, new business, 11B, procurement practices, audit service recommendation report. Councillor Ivy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a basic report, and then the attachment is the detail that came in correspondence. And just look to get this in front of council. It's entirely their choice. As you know, we voted on auditors here a month ago, but since then, resident identified questions that they had regarding the process of the procedure that was deployed for it. And so, in that regard, my thinking was that we'd get it here and get it through to be referred back to the audit committee, which made the initial decision on the auditors to review and consider. Whereas the CIO has noted that I guess it could have simply gone to the chair, but I didn't see that as a path at the time. I just lost sight of it. So either way, either council can move it back, the chair can take it, or we can refuse it. But I thought it best to address it and deal with it. That's basically it. I think everybody's probably read the report on the detail of it. If there's any questions, I'm glad to answer them as best I can.
Any questions for Councillor Ivy on the report? Seeing no lights, there is a recommendation, Councillor Ivy, if you would like to make it.
Yeah, glad to. The audit committee, committee of the whole recommends that council direct the CIO to provide the correspondence received on June 30th titled WHRM Procurement Practices Audit Services in advance of the next meeting of the audit committee for its review and consideration.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Paul Wheaton. Any questions on the motion? Mayor Zabian.
Yeah, maybe just one to Director Roshan. We actioned that direction of council, so that auditor has been hired. So that'd be my only hesitation with the wording of the motion for its review and consideration. I'm just not sure what they would consider at this point if the action has already been undertaken.
Director Roshan.
Yeah, so the successful bidder has been notified and we've already had initial launch meetings and the unsuccessful bidders have also been notified.
Councillor Ivy?
If I could just offer, this wasn't, as I noted in the report, that the auditors have been approved and we've gone past that window. So it wasn't, it's to review, I guess, what or how and if there was any impact as a resulted from this, that we should know that, or they should know that in that regard. This is something that we want to see that it doesn't occur again. And if it's mistaken, then we can be told that too. I just thought it's better that we deal with it. And that's the reason for this. It's not that you'd only reconsider if you had an issue. And I don't know that at this point. I hope that's clear.
Okay, seeing no more lights, there is a recommendation that has been seconded. So Clerk Snare, do you want to put that up to a vote, please? Motion passed. There were 3 nays. Thank you, everyone, for that. Okay, counselors, it is 7:55. We're at the public comment period, so we are gonna go right to that now. We normally would break at 8, but I think we have some residents I can barely see over the chair. But if anyone would like to come up and speak, please feel free to do so. Don't be shy. Come on up, Bill. I could barely see you over the chair back there. So you know the drill. Turn the light on, introduce yourself for those who don't know you.
The name is Bill Preston.
Oh,
The name is Bill Preston, and I'm a resident of Hansport. And I have a paragraph I would like to read to you because it covers back for a couple of years. So if you don't mind, this is what I'm going to do. When we purchased our property 14 years ago, there was 12 duplex homes. The majority of the homeowners are primarily elderly, and over the past 2 years, there has been 3 new homes added and a potential for more. My property taxes are over $3,000 per year. So if you multiply that by the number of places there or homes, it's quite a bit. It's to the point now that with the new development that's coming in from 3 to build up, there's been 4 that's been done this year by an individual. And when you have more houses and so forth, you have more people coming up and looking. Ours is a cul-de-sac, and it's getting to be very fast, a fast cul-de-sac, as well as there's no place for anyone to move at all. It's getting to be similar, and I have a dog. It's similar to the dog pound down in HMCC. There's no signs out there that says anything except no exit. It would be nice if there was something there to say slow down or something like that, or whatever you wanted to do, but just to bring it to people's mind. The road's paved there with open ditches, both sides of the road, of course. The municipality used to come up and snip the ditches every year. However, they only came up and did it when the residents asked the municipality to send somebody up or do something with the grass and so forth. The same with the ditches being cleaned. They're not cleaned. There was a guy up there the other day that did them. He jumped ahead of us. I wanted to do this before him. However, he was doing the ditches, but he wasn't doing the ditches. He was doing the top of the road. So the ditches are still a mess. There was they did a good job when they were doing it. They used to come up and snip and ditch, as I said. They did a good job. They stopped with lots of calls and asked them to clean and cut the grass. The ditches are an eyesore. And this year, with all the moisture we've had and so forth, some of the driveways you go by, you can't even see a vehicle in the car because nobody's doing anything. We're proud of our homes. We like to clean it, keep it clean and nice, and something that people would like to pay for the houses, but they like to live in them, and they would like the pride is there, but we can only do so much, and us young guys takes us a little bit longer to do it. There's a manhole cover there that's been needed replaced for 2 years. 2 years, that thing all you hear when somebody drives over, because it's about that much deeper than what it should be, and all you hear is bang, bang, bang. It's almost as if we're not really part of the community. It's great in the winter. These guys do a tremendous job clearing snows and so forth. But unfortunately, the maintenance is not there to follow up what these guys do. So we discussed this a long time ago. Like I say, the mayor and I, going back that length of time, but there's still been nothing been done about it. So that's all I'm asking, or on the part of the rest of the people. And Steve is with me as well. I think his thoughts are the same as mine are. So it would be nice if somebody could go up, have a look once or twice. Sometimes there's only one car or truck where they go up to the end of the cul-de-sac, and they're your employers. They stop, they gotta have a cigarette. They shouldn't be smoking while they're working. And they'll be there for a while and then they go. Nothing's done. So unfortunately, we don't really like having to come and say something like this. It's not something that we should be doing. So I thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Come on up, state your name.
Hi there. My name's Steve Boone, and I live in Hansport, right across the road from Bill. And I have a question related to what he said from the group can answer tonight. Are there any, or is there any schedule for ditch or road maintenance? Like, is someone scheduled, like on January the 12th or March the 12th, they drive up and clean the ditches? Is that once or twice a year, or is it scheduled at all?
Unfortunately, as council, we can't answer questions. This is just to take comments, but
Okay, my comment is then, there should be a schedule to clean the ditches in Macaulay Pines in Hansport, because they're being neglected compared to the other ditches in the town, or the gathering, or whatever it's called now. So that's why I'm here, is there should be a schedule so that no one's guessing, oh, Bill's free today, he'll do it. No, schedule. And I'd like to know that schedule when it's.
okay, we will, we've taken note and we will get back with to
Thank you.
you with something, okay? Perfect. Anyone else? You're all good? Okay. Well, thank you, Steve and Bill, for your comments. Appreciate that. So our next, we will be going in camera. So if council would like to take a 10-minute break before we go in camera, I'm just looking for a motion to go in camera. Councillor Larry Pinch and Councillor Paul Morton, all those in favor? Perfect. Thank you very much, folks, and have a safe trip home. And we may be coming out of camera if there's any motions. Otherwise, we will not be.